Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a really specific event, the memorial service for Charlie Kirk in Arizona just this past Sunday. It felt less like a typical memorial, though, and much more like a massive political and cultural statement. And just so you know, we're grounding this whole deep dive entirely in the live updates and reports that came out from CNN throughout that day. Just that one stream of info.
Exactly. And our goal here isn't just, recounting what happened. We want to dig into the logistics. I mean, the sheer scale, the atmosphere, that cultural and religious feeling, and maybe most importantly, the political influence Kirk clearly had. You could see it just by who showed up, right?
Yeah.
It really demonstrated a very organized power base.
Yeah, that power, like you said, it starts with just the numbers, the scale. Okay, so let's unpack that first. The physical size of this thing, 'cause it's pretty staggering. So the main place, State Farm Stadium, that holds around, 64,000 people? And reports said it was basically full, almost packed to the rafters. Even before the service officially started, they were scrambling to fill every seat.
And that 64,000, that was just the beginning. Once that filled up, they immediately switched to the arena right next door, Desert Diamond Arena. That added another maybe 9,000 spots. Only when both were totally full did they start turning people away, sending them to watch on big screens outside. Think about managing 70,000 plus people showing up for a service on a Sunday. The logistics are just immense.
It really says something about how dedicated people were. I mean, the reports mentioned folks going to extraordinary lengths, like Clifford Craig getting there at 2:30 in the morning, local time.
Right.
And Pamela Milton flying in from California, arriving at 5 a.m. What is that kind of commitment, before dawn? Tell us about the movement.
Well, it signals real stability, I think,
Mm.
and deep personal investment. This wasn't just people curious nearby. It was more like a pilgrimage for many. It clearly became a top priority, something you drop everything else for. And that's the kind of energy that fuels political action, not just online talk.
And with that level of commitment, plus all the top officials there, security was obviously a huge deal. CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell, he noted the event got a Tier 1 rating. That
Yeah.
sounds very technical. What does that actually tell us?
Tier 1, yeah, that's the highest level for special event security assessment. Federal agencies use it. It's usually for things like Super Bowl, inaugurations, events with maximum risk, or crucially, when the president is attending. So it tells you that operationally, from the government's view, this was way beyond a standard public gathering. It meant mobilizing a massive security effort for this one service.
Okay, so moving past the huge numbers in the security, the atmosphere inside, CNN described it in a pretty striking way. Despite everything, the heavy security, the sadness of the occasion, they said the mood before things started had the feel of a megachurch.
Yeah. And that really highlights how tied Kirk's movement was to his Christian faith. It wasn't separate. The service itself leaned into that. It opened with bagpipes playing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And even before that, you had this huge crowd singing worship songs together. They mentioned How Great Is Our God by Chris Tomlin specifically. It basically turned a football stadium into this giant church service for a bit.
And the report suggested this wasn't just for show, right? Young attendees they interviewed specifically said his faith was why they connected with him, why they felt they had to be there. One person, Luke Bravo, said it felt like a brother in Christ was shot and killed. That's incredibly personal language. Does it suggest that for a lot of the core base, the politics is almost secondary to that religious bond?
For many at the grassroots level, I think so, yes. The faith provides that shared identity, the community feel, the moral justification that drives the politics. It's like the emotional core. You can get people interested politically, but to sustain that kind of mobilization, that scale, you often need something deeper. For this movement, that seems to be the Christian faith. It gives it staying power.
And you saw that visually, too. The messaging seemed to reinforce both things, solidarity and political resolve. People were asked to wear red, white, and blue.
Right.
And those signs on the seats, held up before the service, making these big blocks of color across the stadium, they read, "This is our turning point and never surrender."
Yeah.
That kind of visible, organized display, it makes you wonder who was behind all that and whose presence there really signaled political importance.
And that shifts us squarely into the political side of things, because this wasn't just a gathering of supporters. It was a real convergence of top administration figures. It showed that the current White House saw this event as absolutely essential.
Right. Like when President Trump flew to Arizona on Air Force One, he wasn't alone. CNN lifted who was with him: House Speaker Mike Johnson, his Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and Jared Kushner. Vice President J.D. Vance flew separately, which is standard protocol, but that group on Air Force One
Well, every seat on that plane when the president travels is significant. It's a calculated choice. Having the speaker, the chief of staff, and a key family advisor like Kushner all there together, what does that signal about how the administration viewed Kirk's ongoing political weight? It signals that the Republican establishment at the highest level felt they had to be there to publicly acknowledge the power of Kirk's base. It wasn't just sympathy, it was a political nod to the movement itself.
And it wasn't only government people. There were other big names.
Hmm.
Elon Musk was there, apparently entered to cheers, and he posted about the huge crowd on X.
And that's interesting, too, because the context there, according to the reporting, was that Kirk had apparently been working behind the scenes recently, trying to smooth things over between Musk and Trump, whose relationship has been, well, pretty bumpy. Oh.
Okay, so that idea of him acting as a bridge, a sort of mediator between powerful figures, that puts a different frame on his role. Less of a commentator, more of maybe a back channel operator.
Which leads us right into maybe the most fascinating part of this deep dive. The sources really depict him not just as, a supportive voice, but as a key operational player. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the event wasn't just about who came to pay respects. It was about who spoke and what their presence revealed about Kirk's actual, tangible influence, especially as a kingmaker during the transition before Trump's second term started.
Exactly. The reporting suggests Kirk was deeply involved in shaping the current administration. He apparently even moved his family temporarily down to Florida just to help vet potential cabinet picks. That points to a kind of unofficial parallel power structure, doesn't it? Where an activist, someone outside government, could directly influence who got appointed to major roles. Okay, let's break down some specifics from the CNN reports on that influence. Starting with Vice President J.D. Vance. Kirk was reportedly credited not just with bringing Vance into the MAGA fold, whatever that precisely means, but with actually convincing Donald Trump Jr. that Vance was the right choice for VP. Let's pause on MAGA fold. Was Kirk checking ideological boxes, or was it more about whether they could energize the base he commanded?
Probably a bit of both, but I think the mobilization part was key to his leverage. For someone like Vance, Kirk offered that crucial link to the grassroots. Vance had some establishment ties, but Kirk could provide the stamp of approval needed to win over the hardcore base. He was the validator, you see.
Okay, validation. Yeah. Then there's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Hegseth apparently told people privately that Kirk was the reason he got concerned. Why? Because Kirk reportedly went on the attack publicly against Republican Senator Roni Ernst, who was blocking the nomination.
Right.
That sounds less like advice and more like, well, direct pressure, using his platform coercively. Mm-hmm. What does that move? Attacking a senator from your own party to push a cabinet pick. Tell us about his influence.
It confirms a very aggressive approach, zero-sum. He wasn't afraid to use his media platform and his followers almost like a weapon, even against Republicans, to get the personnel he wanted. It suggests he valued ideological alignment and maybe loyalty above traditional party unity. And he successfully used his outside influence to shape the inside structure of the government.
And it didn't stop there. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Kennedy, apparently said Kirk was a key architect behind his endorsement of Trump and crucial for getting him the HHS job. Mm-hmm. He specifically mentioned the Make America Healthy Again movement. Mm-hmm. That movement seems to tap into a lot of skepticism about federal health agencies, right?
Yeah.
How did Kirk manage to connect those dots, bringing RFK Jr. into that orbit?
Well, Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, it provided a vehicle, a way to channel that kind of anti-establishment feeling, wherever it came from, into actual political force. RFK Jr. brought a certain profile, alignment on things like distrust of federal health bodies. Kirk provided the organizational muscle to turn that alignment into real political capital, like a major cabinet position.
Okay, one more. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Reports said Kirk was personally calling senators when her confirmation seemed shaky. He called getting her confirmed mission critical and used his platform to push for her.
Yeah, so when you put those four together, Vance, Hegseth, Kennedy, Gabbard, a picture emerges, doesn't it? Kirk seems to have been acting almost like an unofficial personnel director for parts of the administration, using the power or the threat of his mobilized base to push through his preferred candidates, often bypassing or overriding the usual government channels, deciding who got key jobs across different departments.
Which naturally raises the question about what happens now. With Kirk gone, the reports confirmed his wife, Erica Kirk, is taking over Turning Point USA, and she's vowed to continue his work.
And you saw TPUSA acting on that immediately, right there at the memorial service. While the event was still going on, they had volunteers in the concourse with clipboards registering people to vote
Wow, okay.
and handing out flyers with discount codes for AmericaFest 2025, which is their big conference in December. So they weren't just mourning, they were treating that massive gathering as an organizing event right away to keep the momentum going.
So if you pull back and connect all these threads, the immense scale, the strong faith element, the behind-the-scenes political maneuvering, this memorial service seems like it was much more than just a farewell. It was a huge political and religious rally, really.
I think that's right. It showcased the sheer size and dedication of the base, yes, but also the deep, recognized institutional influence Kirk had built. Influence that reached right into the Oval Office and cabinet rooms.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It kind of peels back the curtain on how a major political movement operates today. We saw the committed, faith-driven base, the tight organization, and that direct line of influence Kirk wielded over who leads the country. The event wasn't just an ending. It felt like a very public and seemingly successful handover within a machine that clearly impacts major government appointments.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? Given the huge political energy and that feeling of solidarity we saw, how will this shift in leadership to Erica Kirk and TPUSA's continued organizing change the landscape for young conservatives? Especially now that everyone's seeing so clearly how that grassroots power can be leveraged to influence who gets picked for top government jobs.
Yeah, that's definitely something to watch in the coming years.